comes Almirola. Crash into the wall. I think it's Stenhouse. It might be Blaney.
Don't you just love Talladega? Talladega always provides. This is the Rich Report, bringing you the richest content across entertainment. We've got a quartet of gentlemen discussing today's crazy Talladega race because, you know, big track, you get a big video going. Johnny Crane, Sean Clark, Josh Schneider all joining me today. Gentlemen, how are you doing? We'll start with Johnny.
Dega did not fail at all, okay? How many lead changes were there? 59?
56 amongst
56
19 leaders.
With 19 drivers. Great. I loved it. But we'll get into it. I'm having a good time. Let's talk.
Sean?
I am so happy that we actually got this race in. It was rained out yesterday, and then today we were just hoping to get to halfway. We didn't just get to halfway. We went all the way, and I am so happy we did because it was probably the best race I've seen in my short NASCAR fan career.
And for me, you know, tough 24 hours in the NASCAR world and NASCAR community, but really good to see an awesome race come out, put a great product out there for the 5,000 fans that were there. That was also cool to see. So like I said, tough few events this weekend, but good to see a fun photo finish, cap it all off.
Yeah, it was. It was a very tough last 24 hours, as it was reported and told. It was Steve Phelps that told Bubba Wallace that the noose was in the garage, was found in the garage. And it's just, at some point, you just get sick and tired. You had to put in effort to be that racist. And we've seen it now. This is the third occasion we've seen ever since Bubba spoke out and since this Black Lives Matter movement, where we've had like real effort of racism. We had the plane with the Confederate flag, and I was saying defund NASCAR. We had the noose, and then during the Man City and Burnley match today, the soccer match, there was a plane flying around saying "White Lives Matter, Burnley." I mean, the level of just hate you have to have in your heart just to do anything of the sort is just insane. But we had it was a great big moment for NASCAR today when all the drivers pushed Bubba's car to the front, all the teams followed, and then you saw a couple of drivers embracing Bubba as well, and he broke into tears, and I damn near broke down and cried like a little baby. It's just the change we're seeing in the sport is great, and I'm glad we're weeding out the racists now so that we can remove them from the sport completely. So I want to get your thoughts just on the pre-race festivities.
For me, I think the thing that I really hate almost the most about, obviously I hate the racist acts, but the thing I really hate about is it reinforces the stereotype that NASCAR isn't welcoming, that it's not accepting. And I just hate seeing the mainstream media run with that. I hate seeing that be the headline for NASCAR and not, hey, here we have this great sport, and we do. And so I hate seeing that. And I think it's really great to have some pre-race festivities, very public, very open, have all the drivers and all the pit crews out there and show that we aren't racist. We aren't anything like that. We really don't like what happened. And we want to see as many people come enjoy our great sport as possible. And it's great that they put on a great show today, because with some unity at the beginning and then just great hard racing all throughout, that's what we want to see. That's what should be on the headlines, not the bad things.
I don't understand. I've never understood racism. I've never understood why people are racist. It's just upsetting that we are in 2020 and people are still actively racist. Why? I don't understand it. I was angry when I saw what happened to Bubba Wallace. It was extremely upsetting. Like I said, I don't understand why people are still racist in the 21st century. I mean, racist period, but especially in the 21st century. And to see the NASCAR community come together to embrace them, to show them that, hey, we love you and we're here for you. I cried too, man. I cried too. It was, it was a tearjerker for sure. And to see Bubba Wallace lead at one point in this race was also great to see.
When I look at all the issues, not only with the Bubba Wallace racist issues, but with the Premier League issue and just all the unrest in our country and world today, what's scary to me about what happened to Bubba and what was found in Bubba's garage was that it could either have been super serious and that someone really wanted to do it as a hate crime, or they did it to be humorous. And I don't know which one is worse. And it pretty much just exemplifies, as you said, Josh, it exemplifies the stereotype, the negative stereotype of not only NASCAR, but as the entire South as a whole. As I'm from the South, I've lived in the South my entire life. I've never really encountered racist individuals at all. There's only one instance where I've encountered that. Every other time, everybody's super friendly. Oh, how are you doing? Good morning. Let me open the door for you. The Southern hospitality aspect, that really resonates to me from my time in the South. And what I really loved about the festivities in the pre-race ceremony is that Southern hospitality was really exemplified, where everybody walked with Bubba. They put his car out front. Bubba took a selfie with everybody behind him. That exemplifies what the sport should be, and that exemplifies what the sport is for the most part. And that's what really should be exemplified on more so than the negative stereotypes that do not hold true. It's a real shame that we have bad people in the world that taint the image of not only NASCAR, but like you said, Sean, to do that, to not only to possibly put harm on someone, but to be humorous as well. It's a very sickening feeling, and it really shows that we, as a country, as individuals, as a group, and as a sport, everybody has room to grow. And I hope that continues moving forward.
Wonderfully said. Going into the race, early on, it was a Penske alliance. We had Ryan Blaney, Brad Keselowski, and Joey Logano running at the front. They would dominate most of the first stage, but of course, things get chaotic, and we sort of saw the Chevys move up. Tyler Reddick would go on to win his first career stage in the Cup Series. Yeah, with this aero package, obviously you still get the runs that you've seen previously, but they're not as fast, so you don't see guys. You still saw a lot of being and banging on the bumpers, but the good part is with that slip tape and with the cars being slowed down just a little bit, we aren't seeing cars being just shoved totally like you would see last year at the Daytona 500. So good on that. And it provided just a great show throughout the day. You never saw anybody really settle down. I think that could be attributed to the rain threatening as well, which if you have these rain threatened super speedway races, you're never going to really see guys take a notch off of how aggressive they are. Everybody was aggressive, but the good part is that there was room for error. Slight room for error, but there was at least room for error, unlike the previous years. So I'm going to start with Josh first, just your overall thoughts on the racing in general, because it was fairly different from our last couple of plate races.
Yeah, it definitely was different. Guys weren't getting 8-9 mile an hour runs on each other that we were seeing that caused some of the wrecks that we saw even in the Daytona 500 or last Talladega. But I think it still worked out really well. As you said, undeniably, it was a great race. There were comers and goers, people taking everyone was bouncing around the front of the pack. And I also, I don't like that the race was pushed back a day for rain, but I do like the urgency that was created in every single lap, every stage, because of the threatening rain. Thought that made a great race. No, there was really never any riding around, which is awesome to see, especially at super speedways, because it makes it even more intense with such high speed. So overall, great race. The package did a great job. Still got close racing. No complaints there.
Sean, go.
Johnny.
Okay. The thing about this Talladega race that made it so amazing was the teamwork. You mentioned how Penske lined up 1, 2, 3, and it was kind of a Penske parade. They were basically pushing each other. It was nothing like I have seen in my short time watching NASCAR. I've never really seen you have like 3 cars that are all going together. Usually what I'm used to seeing is single file, just one everywhere. But to see 3 cars basically all work together to outrace the other lane, it was mind-blowing to me. I never had seen anything like it. It was so much fun to watch. teamwork really was a play in this. And how about an ultimate team up of Ricky Stenhouse and Kyle Busch? I know Kyle Busch eventually wrecked, but those two were making incredible runs, sometimes even better than Penske's runs. So the teamwork on display was really what stood out to me in this race, and it's why it's probably my favorite race, because it was so unique to see. You basically had two lines of battles almost the entire race. Who doesn't love to see that, especially when almost every other race, not including Daytona or Bristol, are basically single file. Let's just try to pass them. It was amazing. No matter what your allegiances are, you have to recognize that it was an incredibly entertaining race with all the battles going on, especially in the first two stages. My gosh, that was so much fun to watch.
From my takeaway, this race really exemplified and it was the epitome of not only the line racing and the aero package, but also battling for that clean air. Like you said, Sean, it was a two-line battle. You had two main lines of cars, but also you had a middle line that was trying to jockey between the two lines to see which of those lines was getting that clean air. Because both throughout the entire race, we saw the outside line getting that clean air and the inside line. And that's why we saw a bunch of those lead changes, because they were taking the clean air back and forth from each other. You get that, and you combine that with the aero package, and you have a lot of passing and a lot of risky moves, whether that's an account because of the weather or just to get better position as you go into the race as it goes on. So overall, it was really a really elite race, and reading between the lines, if you know more about NASCAR, you're able to understand that. But even if you're a casual fan getting into the sport, you recognize the need to be up front and to get that clean air, because if you don't have that clean air, you're going to fall back. And that's what you really saw between the line that didn't get the clean air and the middle line that was trying to go into the line with the clean air. So overall, a great race, a strategic race, and it was a chess race. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think when it comes to debating, should you run out front or settle in the back and wait for the big wreck? One guy that was never even competitive all day was Martin Truex Jr. Sat in the back. Him and Clint Boyer really were never really up there at the front. And of course, the final lap, they get taken out in a wreck. And of course, there was a wreck at the front stretch, but they were also involved in a wreck in turn 3 as well. So maybe it doesn't pay off to just sit in the back and ride around until the big wreck happens. It would before, but not today. Not with this package. I think whatever mistakes there were with how great the racing was in 2019, I think that's been fixed with slowing down the car just a little bit. All right, going to the final stage, I think we saw another chapter in the feud of Chase Elliott, and maybe it might be all Team Penske aside from Blaney. So, Sean, I'm going to go to you first here. Chase Elliott gets pretty much sandwiched by Logano and Keselowski, and it ends up turning Elliott and wrecking him, taking him out of the race along with Austin Dillon. Great awareness by everybody to just avoid wadding up 5, even more cars than that. Only 2, really. It was Chase Elliott and Austin Dillon. But, Sean, I'm going to start with you. Is more fuel to the fire in the Logano-Elliott feud?
Oh, absolutely. I wrote in my preview for this race that it'll be interesting to see how the Logano and Chase Elliott feud continues. And boy, was I right that it was going to continue. You saw in Bristol how they took each other out on the final lap, and Brad Keselowski stole a win. You saw in Miami Homestead how Logano was 2 laps down, and he brake checked Chase Elliott, which caused Denny Hamlin to grow his lead on Chase Elliott. And then what do we see? Chase Elliott slides in between Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski, and Brad Keselowski makes contact, and there goes Chase Elliott out of the race. Once again, we see Chase Elliott. He's an aggressive driver. He's probably had the fastest car of any driver all year. Every time I watch Chase Elliott, he's always in the top 10, always in the top 5, always competing. But he's only won once because sometimes he's a little too aggressive or he has bad luck. One of the two almost always seem to happen. And once again, he should have known that Logano and Keselowski were riding together. You don't slide in between 2 teammates like that. I'm sorry. I know I'm going to get some flack for this opinion, but I'm sorry. You just don't do that. Elliott was asking for trouble there, and that's what happened.
I'm going to go to Josh on this one. Who's at fault? Is it Elliott or is it on one of the Penske drivers?
I don't know if there's a ton of fault here. Now, I wouldn't blame Chase Elliott really for anything there. it's a super speedway race. You get stuck in that middle lane. You got to find your spot and get back in line. I don't think there's any blame for him for slotting in between two team drivers, because at the end of the day, teammates are just teammates until the end of the race. And even in the middle of the race, it's not up to you to be nice to other guys because they're two teammates running together. You got to find your spot, slot in there. And then I think you get a big run, you bump a guy going into the corner or on the back straight. There's really nothing that could have been done there from Keselowski other than slamming brakes, but then that probably causes a wreck back behind him. So I don't know if anyone's really at fault, but I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Sean, that Chase, I don't think he's really at any fault there by sliding in where he found a spot, but just tough luck on a super speedway when there's a big run coming.
Let's
rewind the clock on this.
Let's rewind the clocks to stage 1 and stage 2, where Keselowski, Logano, all of Team Penske, especially Logano, though, was really riding the bumpers of cars in front of him. He was really doing that to not only get those cars ahead, but also to give him that position, like you said, Josh, to getting in line and to find that clean air, like I said. And Logano was really doing that to get that draft and to be a part of the run that was in the car in front of him. Now, at the times, in certain instances, you can make the case Logano was being a little too aggressive with that in that regard. However, like you said, Josh, I really don't think there is intentional fault. It definitely isn't Chase's fault, Sean. But I don't really think this is Keselowski or Logano intentionally boxing Elliott in to get him out. I just think that Elliott unfortunately found himself between two teammates, and I don't think a teammate thing had anything to do with this. I don't think there was a strategy to box Elliott in. But even still, Elliott just found himself in a wrong circumstance going against two teammates and two drivers that were really riding the bumpers and getting up close with the other drivers, trying to find those lines that were really working with the clean air. So all in all, it's unfortunate for Chase. He's had a fast car all year, but I don't think that this will stop him at all. He'll be back. He'll be hungry. He'll be good. Logano and Keselowski will still be aggressive, and let's see if something else comes from the feud. I don't think it's over.
All right, so with around 50 to go, guys are still racing hard, and then we get a caution between two small teams in the back with Brennan Poole and Joey Gase, which then sort of throws off the pit strategy a little bit in terms of the fuel window. Fuel window's around 40, 45 laps, and people have the pit with around 47 to go. So guys are going to be short on fuel. If you're at the front, you really couldn't run half throttle. I mean, some of the guys got lucky in the back, like Keselowski, like Truex, they were able to run half throttle, and they had the fuel to get to the end without pitting. And I don't know why did Truex pit on the last stop, because he was still riding in the back. I think he came in still.
Yeah, he did. He got tires also, I'm pretty sure.
Which also confuses me as well. I don't really think you need. It's not do or die to get 4 tires there. Maybe 2 just in case, but it was a little bit odd in terms of coming in taking tires when we're running 2 laps to the finish. But yeah, we throw off the pit strategy, and many drivers, Bubba especially, who got a couple laps in and led in the final stage, and he was running up there too. He was running top 5, but he knew his fuel window was around. He was going to miss it by 4 or 5 laps to the finish. So a couple of them, including Tyler Reddick, who was leading that bottom pack, they all backed out because they're already coming pit road. And then Harvick decides to make it felt like a desperation move. It might have been because he had too much of a run coming and would have just slammed into Johnson, but he tries squeezing in between Johnson, making it 3 wide, and he turns Jimmy Johnson, which I think they're going to have a little conversation about that, because 2 veteran drivers, 2 champions, you just don't see that from them. So Josh, what do you've been the most vocal about. I want to know your take on that incident.
I mean, another heartbreaker for Jimmy Johnson in his final season. I keep thinking he's going to get it. I saw him coming on that outside lane there at the end, and I thought, here he comes. I think there were 4 to go. I thought, here he comes. He's up to the front again. I watched it a couple times. At first, I just thought I was mad at Harvick. I thought, why would you do that? Why would you make that try to fit that gap there. I thought he should have just, two veterans get on the high lane together, bump each other to the front. The more I watched it, though, I'm not sure that Harvick had anything to do there. I think if he stays straight and hits the back of Jimmy going into one, I don't know if Jimmy stays straight there either. I think Harvick was stuck between a rock and a hard place there. I mean, he had such a big push coming from I believe it was the 17 behind him. And I think he just tried to go with the only spot he thought that he could avoid contact. Just heartbreaking for Jimmy. And I'm not totally sure if Harvick is really at fault. I don't know if there was anything he could have done there, but again, just sad to see, and like you said, surprising because it's two 20+ year drivers getting in a wreck in the last few laps. That's just interesting to see.
Another point I want to hit on, and we've discussed this before. Is it really time to panic for the Kyle Busch camp? They cut a tire late in the race and wound up a few laps down and finished 32nd. Is there cause for concern in that 18 camp, gentlemen?
Well, you mentioned it earlier, Cam. He finished behind Quinn Houff. I think it's time to panic a little bit now.
Yes, I think last year Kyle Busch won the championship because he had the best team. In the championship race at Homestead last year, every team had some sort of terrible blunder that made it easy for Kyle Busch to win. Martin Truex got wrong tires. Denny Hamlin had tape on the grill. It was a disaster. But Kyle Busch's team was perfect in that race, and that's why Kyle Busch won the championship despite Martin Truex having the faster car. Where is that this year? What happened to that? Kyle Busch. It has been nothing short of a disaster in the Cup Series so far this season. It's always something. I can't tell you how many times he's had to start at the rear because I've legitimately lost count. It seems like he starts at the rear half of the time. I mean, good thing for Kyle Busch that he's won the two other major races in the Truck Series and Xfinity, or else this would be the worst year ever. He seems to start in the race. He seems to have something bad going on during the race. I mean, frankly, Joe Gibbs Racing hasn't had the best year this year either. But when it comes to Kyle Busch, figure it out. What is going on? Like, did they massively change their game plan after Homestead last year? Why? It worked last year. I don't understand how all this is happening. Kyle Busch had the best team last year. Now you have one of the worst. I don't get it. I legitimately don't get it.
He finished behind Quinn Houff. He has no stage wins on the year. Tyler Reddick got a stage win before Kyle Busch. And like you said, Sean, he's been really good in the Truck Series, but that's sort of expected. And what's also expected is that he is going to be consistently good in the Cup Series. He's a champion after all. But penalties, speeding on pit road, starting at the rear to start the race, getting caught in the back of the pack, he hasn't been able to get at the top consistently and to stay there. When I think of Kyle Busch, I think of him going on runs that Kevin Harvick has gone on this year. Consistent top 10 finishes, fast cars. He's at the top of the pack the entire time. He's always riding on the good line to run in to get that clean air. But that hasn't happened. He's been caught in the back of the pack. The penalties have forced him to the rear where he can't get any momentum. And we passed pretty much the halfway point of the season, and we still haven't any developed consistency with Kyle Busch and to a greater extent, Joe Gibbs Racing. So am I concerned at this point? I said a few weeks ago that he still had some time. But that time has already passed, and we still haven't seen any consistency develop. So at this point, I am a little concerned for his car and for the overall outlook of his car and his team moving forward because that consistency isn't there. I don't know what gives, but whatever's going right now is definitely not working.
And so we get to the overtime restart, and it just becomes all chaos from there. Ryan Blaney somehow finds a way. And, of course, on the final lap, we had all hell break loose. We had the crash in the back of the pack in turn 3 with Truex, DiBenedetto, Clint Boyer. And then we get to the finish, and it's just all chaos. Nemechek gave Eric Jones Eric Jones. I'm sorry. Lost my train of thought a minute there. Nemechek gave Eric Jones a strong push that could have put Eric Jones in victory lane, but Blaney said, nope, I'm taking this victory on at any cost. He puts Eric Jones practically in the wall. He was turned by Nemechek. That ended up being what took them both out. And we get a photo finish between Blaney and Stenhouse. Blaney takes the victory, second straight photo finish win for him at Talladega. If you go back to last fall, he had the photo finish with Ryan Newman. This is his third straight photo finish he's been involved in. He's won 2 of them. Could have been a Daytona 500 champion, but that side drafting really just does a lot. Eric Almirola spun into a third place finish. Wrecking down the front stretch and spins with third place. Denny Hamlin fourth, Eric Jones fifth, Chris Buescher with a nice top 10 with the 6th place run. Alex Bowman 7th, Nemechek 8th, Kurt Busch 9th, and Kevin Harvick somehow snuck his way into the top 10 once again. Bubba Wallace, who led a couple laps, finished 14th. And Quinn Howell finished in front of Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon. Yeah, all those guys. So, good for him. He finished inside the top 30, which, it's something. It's a result for him. So now I'll close out with this question. Ryan Blaney is neighbors with Dale Jr. Has Blaney sort of picked Jr.'s brain to where he's now, learned something from him about being the Pied Piper at these super speedway races? Is Blaney going to be that next guy to start dominating at these super speedway races? Because we had Keselowski dominate, we had Logano, and now Blaney's sort of filling in that lane now. So I'll start with Josh. Is Blaney the next sort of quote-unquote Pied Piper for these super speedway races?
I'm going to have to say yes, just based on the success he's had at 2 straight Talladega wins, 3 feet away from a Daytona 500 win. Clearly he's had a couple beers with Junior over there in Dirty Mo Acres or whatever it is they call it, and talked about side drafting, talked about sea in the air like Dale Sr. could. I don't see any reason why Ryan Blaney doesn't continue to really dominate at these super speedways. In Ford and Penske specifically have done really well at Talladega. I think 5 out of the last 7 and now 6 out of the last 8 winners at Talladega have been Fords. No reason to say Ryan Blaney doesn't establish himself as the top super speedway racer if he already isn't.
I would say Ryan Blaney already is. When you look at especially his last 3 races, win at Talladega, runner-up at Daytona 500, and then a win today. And if you look at the final stage, Ryan Blaney was around 13, 14, 15, 16. He was in the teens. It was not looking very good. He didn't have his Penske teammates to boost him for the most of the final stage. But what did he do? He got up towards the pack. He was able to pass Tyler Reddick right before the caution happened. So Ryan Blaney actually started at the front line during the restart. And also, Ryan Blaney just knows how to make great runs. We saw at Martinsville, he just clawed his way through the entire pack to get to second place. Blaney is a great long run driver. He has proved that. And at a super speedway, you have to have long runs. That's the only way you're going to be able to win at super speedways. And Blaney has been doing that. Blaney was top 5 in overall points, even though he didn't win a race this season. He's consistent. He has long runs. Wait a minute, that sounds like the recipe for success at a super speedway as long as you don't wreck. I think Blaney has already cemented himself as a championship contender for this year, on top of being up there with Denny Hamlin as a fantastic super speedway racer. I think he's certainly already up there. Today proved that.
If you live in the same area as the Pied Piper, who, by the way, the Pied Piper is now a Hall of Famer, you better be picking the brain of him. Who wouldn't? I would definitely think that they have been talking, because common sense would dictate that. If I'm going to be a young developing driver and there's a Hall of Famer, I'm going to talk to him and I'm going to craft his style into my own and make it into my own brand. And I think that's what Blaney is doing. Even though he has teammates that are more recognizable than Blaney, I would say, at this point of his career, if he is able to pick the brain of a Hall of Famer and continue the long runs and the long-term success at super speedways, which are the big-time races, the big-time viewership races, doing that and having success at those tracks like he has so far, I think he could definitely solidify himself as that next kind of driver that, say, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was and so on. So I definitely think that he is, I wouldn't say fully solidified, but he's definitely well on his way. And well on your way is perfectly fine for where he's at in his career right now. It's perfectly developmental. And I think that long term, he will only grow from this. And that's a scary thing because he's already had success, but more success? Oh, boy.
Yeah, that will do it for this video. And thank God we got this race because July is definitely going to feel like the dog days of summer. We got a doubleheader at Pocono next weekend. Then we have the Brickyard 400 for the 4th of July weekend. Then we go to Kentucky. Then we go to Texas, and then we go to Kansas. Kansas wasn't bad last year, but it definitely not a track we need right now this summer. At least it'll be hot, so maybe we'll see more tire wear. It's gonna be a slicker track, so hopefully guys are actually gonna have to wheel the thing around. But yeah, get ready for July, folks. And then we go to New Hampshire in August, which then will hopefully get us back into the groove of great racing. I'll leave everyone's socials down in the description as long as Sean's written recap. I'll have this in audio form as well. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next recap video.